Right now, we could be alive during the peak of the human race, with our numbers only declining from here. Here's why this golden age collapsing is a terrible thing for you and your money. The governments and media have been pushing the narrative that we've been overpopulated for decades, even through popular films like The Avengers.
Too many mouths, not enough to go around.
And it's clearly working, but it's all a lie. Men's testosterone levels are a fraction of what they used to be, falling by 1% every year. Our economy is delicate and relies on a consistently increasing population in order to grow, because more people equals more workers and therefore also more consumers. However, now people are waiting longer to have kids, and when they do, aren't raising as many. This is all leading to the great reversal, where we're in danger of
civilization will die with a whimper in adult diapers.
The great reversal is set to spark economic catastrophe, stagnant stock markets, and rewind the human race by decades. So let's discuss how we got here, what it means for the economy, and how you can prepare. There is one key factor that allowed us to go from this to this. In just a few centuries, our population has absolutely exploded over the last couple of centuries, from around 990 million in 1800 to 7.9 billion in 2022. We've definitely been quite busy. This means there are now more people than ever to come up with new ideas and push the human race forward. More people also means more demand for products and services, which has also led to more business opportunities and investments, but this could be coming to an end. This is because since the 1960s, birth rate has been on a sharp decline, with the projected global figures being less than replacement levels, which is essential for maintaining our numbers. Think about it like this. Me and my wife had one kid called Curtis. Because me and my partner outnumber our child 2 to 1, this means we haven't replaced ourselves. The scientifically proven replacement level is 2.1. This allows for children that unfortunately die in their early years. China's fertility rate is now sitting at 1.3 children per woman, which is well below replacement level, but so are fertility rates in every rich country. The UK's rate is 1.75 and the USA's rate is 1.64. In all developed economies, fertility rates fell below replacement between the 1970s and 1980s and have stayed there ever since. So how is the population still growing if we're not reaching the replacement number of 2.1? Well, third world countries have significantly higher fertility rates and in general are still beating replacement levels, which is pulling up the average global figures. By mid-century, Nigeria is projected to be as populated as the US, closing the current 121 million person gap between the countries. You may think that people just can't afford to have kids anymore. However, the reality is quite the opposite. When people become richer and more educated, they actually choose to have less children, leading to fertility rates falling well below replacement levels. If those conditions spread across the world, the global population will eventually decline. We are starting to see evidence of this in Africa, which has declined from an average of 6 kids to 4 kids per woman in the last 40 years, and it doesn't seem to be levelling out anytime soon. The main reason for our growing population is our increased life expectancy. Life expectancy before 1800 was around 30 years, but now it's 73 years. This means that our society is becoming increasingly dominated by older people. Just like me. That brings us on to the great reversal. For our society to function efficiently, we need to have a pyramid structure. The base should be made up of the younger generation, who will eventually move into the workforce and build on old ideas with fresh perspectives. The top is where the elderly reside, and they can only retire because of the generations below working and paying their taxes. Because of the great reversal, we're seeing this being flipped on its head, with it now resembling a light bulb. With fewer kids on the bottom, a larger aging workforce and a bloated elderly population. Globally, more than 1 billion people will be aged over 65 in 2030, with 210 million aged over 80, about double the numbers in 2010. Older people already account for about a quarter of the population in many countries, including Japan, Italy and Germany. Baby boomers were a great boost to the economy. However, now they're starting to exit the workforce, it means they're more reliant on healthcare and pensions, all financed by the less populated younger generations. And this will have devastating economic impacts. This isn't a guessing game. The Great Reversal has actually already occurred in Japan, and the ramifications have been playing out for the last decade. Since 2010, the population has been on a steady decline, and the Japanese stock market has yet to reach the heights of 1990. That's over 3 decades of lost returns. It seems simple, but the prosperity of the economy is dependent on the number of people available to make things or provide services, multiplied by how productive those people are, which means that slower population growth can be directly responsible for slower economic expansion. Basically, if less people are less productive, the economy will make less money. So in Japan's case, it's not that shocking to see a stagnant market, as they're losing more and more of their workforce, and the pressure to support their older population is only growing. On the upside, this has led to a very low unemployment level of below 2.5%, because everyone is needed in one way or another. This trend is likely to be followed by other developed countries, including the US and the UK, over the next 20 years, as people live longer and birth rates remain low. In fact, Europe's population shrank by 744,000 in 2020 and by 1.4 million last year. That's the largest fall of any continent since records began in 1950, reflecting a surge in deaths and a fall in birth rates and a lower net migration linked to the pandemic. Allowing more young immigrants into countries with ageing populations could go some way to slow this process down. However, the issue of low birth rates is a global one, so eventually there won't be enough young workers to go round. More sustainable ways to fight economic decline are increasing productivity, growing automation, and extending people's working lives. In other words, getting more from the existing population. This is also known as human capital. Human capital is a value of each person in a society. By improving education, we will be able to make every worker more valuable and account for the loss in numbers. However, numbers need to stabilise. China is extremely focused on improving their human capital, with an amazing amount of importance being placed on maths and science. They have actually adjusted their TikTok algorithm to only show inspiring people achieving great feats and working hard. This is all while they try and decrease the human capital around the world by feeding meaningless content into the mind of Gen Zs. According to many projections, China is set to increase their GDP by more than double that of the United States in the same time. The main strain on the younger generation will come from the fact that older people feel like they're entitled to a pension because they've paid into a pot for many years. However, this pot doesn't actually exist. What the government actually do is use taxes to fund the current retirees. Therefore, when boomers reach the retirement age, it'll be the millennials, who are fewer in numbers, that have to pick up the slack. If this cycle keeps repeating, state retirement might not even be an option, unless you survive to the ripe old age of 100. It's also important to note that 69% of gross domestic product depends heavily on personal consumption, which jumps from about $48,000 per household a year when people are 25 to 35 to a high of around $60,000 annually between the ages of 45 and 54, before declining to about $35,000 at the age of 75 and older. Therefore, the amount people spend peaks during child-rearing years. So this could lead to less workers, less consumption, and less overall economic growth. This seems like a pretty dire situation, but what can we do to prepare? I'm going to be honest with you, it would be a good idea if we could at least maintain our numbers, so having more kids and dispelling false beliefs that we're overpopulated is a fantastic idea. Of course, I'm part of the problem here just as much as everybody else by only having one child. However, I was under the false belief that the world had enough people up until very recently when researching this video. Over the short term, I believe we aren't going to notice a huge drop in our investments. By looking at the data, this will probably be more of a long-term erosion. The people that get ahead now won't be forced to work longer than they want to, as they will have their freedom in their own hands. I understand to have children, you need to set yourself up financially to care for them properly. That's why the following information will help you do that and reduce your burden on the next generation. First of all, it's very important for you to take control of your retirement. Now, I know that retirement seems like one of those old words that no one really wants to think about until they're as grey as me, so let's say freedom instead. It's clear that we can't rely on the governments anymore for a relaxed retirement plan, as there isn't going to be enough people to fund it. That's why investing in reliable assets such as index funds within your Roth IRA or ISA and holding certain commodities like gold and silver is more important than ever. If you want to start investing and get a free stock slice worth up to $1,000, then just use the link below and sign up to public.com. It's a completely free way to get a hold of some assets. Once you've got your more stable investments sorted, I'd start looking at explosive tech companies and crypto. This is because as population starts to decline, to increase GDP, we will be more reliant on improving productivity. I believe this will come in the form of advances in technology and also the integration between technology and finance, which is essentially crypto. In addition to this, as the population ages, there will be more demand for healthcare. If you don't want to invest in healthcare separately, then the S&P 500 consists of quite a few companies that operate in that sector. Previous generations had the luxury of relying on the government and not having to take their finances into their own hands. However, now times are changing. With the internet, there is more information than ever available at your fingertips, so the people that will benefit most from the great reversal will be the ones that arm themselves with that information and master the formula of wealth, which has been the same for decades. It's simple. Make as much money as you can, spend less than you make, invest wisely in long-term assets, and join my free Discord group full of amazing people striking it big so you can share ideas and grow together. There's a special invite link down below. So I'm going to leave the next video right up there, but don't click on it just yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth. Okay, I'll see you over there.